right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Fireside Chat. I am your host, Elizabeth Beisel, and I'm very excited for today's episode for two special reasons. One, I am interviewing not just one, but two world record-holding athletes. And two, they are incredible, inspiring women that host a podcast together. So they are normally the ones doing the interviewing, and we never get to know how amazing they are. But today, I get to take their job and interview them and talk about how inspiring they are, how amazing their podcast is. We're going to cover so many topics. But without further ado, I want to introduce Kelly Palace and Maria Parker, the two hosts of Champions Mojo podcast.
I like how you said my name like you're from Boston.
Parker. Yeah, like the New England accent is coming.
That's where I live, so that's totally fine. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And Elizabeth, we got to start out by saying you are one of the most popular episodes we've ever had on Champions Mojo. One of the top downloads and such a great interview with you. So if anybody missed it on Champions Mojo, it's in the archives.
And anybody listening right now, write it down, championsmojo.com. They have over 80 episodes. They're interviewing dozens of Olympic gold medalists, celebrities, whatever that you need, they have it. So but I want to first talk about you two and your very special relationship. You aren't just co-hosts of the same podcast. You are sisters-in-law. You are best friends. You are both certified health coaches. Talk to me about the first time you guys met, and was it like instant chemistry? Did you guys just know?
I probably remember it differently than Kelly. Kelly, do you want to go first or should I?
I think that is a great place to start because one of the things that we share in common is being under the love and hate of my mother, Norma Parker, who never liked any of her in-laws. So when I first met Maria, I met her through the filter of my mother, which was no one is ever good enough for any of her kids. And the encouragement in that is that Maria and I did not start out as best buddies or instant chemistry. We actually was like, okay, I'm listening to my mom. We're both super young. We're in our 20s when we met, and Maria's obviously dating my brother and is going to marry him. And so we, I was just kind of looking at Maria, is my mom right? But I trust my brother. And, I eventually just fell in love with Maria, and our friendship grew and grew and grew and has grown for, the 35 years that we've been, best friends and sisters-in-laws, but it's really, really grown. And the encouragement again is it didn't start out really on a solid footing. Maria,
to be fair to Kelly and mom, my mother-in-law, Jim drug his new girlfriend home, said, I love this woman, I'm going to marry her. I mean, this is really the first time that I'd met the family. And, oh, by the way, she's pregnant. So, if people were a little critical, I could understand that. But yeah, no, I had trouble in the beginning, but I was completely won over, not just by Kelly, but Kelly's mom and I, although we had a difficult relationship, she taught me really so many things, but I was just telling Jim, my husband, Kelly's brother, like I miss sitting at the table over coffee laughing with her. She had a great sense of humor, and it's something that I hadn't thought about in the later years, but she taught me a lot about how to love. And then Kelly jumped into my life. I call myself a born again athlete. If I was born again as an athlete, I have Kelly Palace to thank, because she is the one who encouraged me and started me on this road that's completely changed my life. So she and her brother. So but no, we were kind of wary at first, but it didn't take too long. I mean, I remember you helping me run a 5K very early in our relationship, and even helping with my makeup a little bit. You were like a big sister early on.
Yeah, I never had any sisters. I grew up with three brothers. And so to have someone like Maria come into my life, I could do her hair and do her makeup and, help her learn to run. And even though she never taught me how to change a diaper and I never had any kids because
well, the first time I tried to change a diaper in front of her, she went running from the room screaming. So that wasn't going to happen.
I did.
I would do the same. You guys are like living the sister-in-law dream.
We are.
This is my goal. Okay, that I want to be like you guys one day. Let's talk about your accomplishments, because I feel like you guys are always interviewing these incredible athletes and people and talking about themselves, but you never get to talk about yourselves. And you're both world record holding athletes. Maria, you're a born again athlete because of Kelly. Kelly, you're a world record holder in master swimming. You have been a coach in swimming, an athlete yourself at NC State University. Can you talk about your athletic career and how it's kind of led you to where you are today?
Yes. I mean, I know, when we go through these personal development workshops and journaling and all that, when I distill, I've been through tons of corporate retreats, and when I distill myself down to who I am a swimmer, period. I mean, I'll never lose that. It's just when I'm on the black line, when I'm looking at bubbles through water, when I'm streamlining, when I'm swimming, that's who I am. And so swimming, came to me rather, well, maybe not super easily, but, I was very successful as a little summer league swimmer, and then started, setting records and being state record holder. And then, was very good in high school, got a full scholarship to college, swam at a Division I high level university. So that was, what I wanted. That was all I wanted. I wanted to be, of course, like all little swimmers, I wanted to be on the Olympic team. And that was my dream. And I saw Shane Gould and Shirley Babashoff and, these, and I was a distance swimmer. So these stars, but even though I never, and this is something that I always share with, swimmers is, the smallest percentage make the Olympic team, but it still doesn't mean you can't have a really beautiful career. That my career's just gone on and on and on. I still swim masters. And as I got into masters, I love, hey, you could still get medals, you could still get hardware, you could still get records. And so
world records.
Yeah. I mean, I've set, several, like 5K. I think my current records that I hold are 5K open water, on a cable swim, the 5K, 10K in the pool, 800 meter is the free relay. But I've set several national records. I think some of them have been broken now, but I still hold the world record. But I think what's interesting about me being this athlete that inspired Maria is Maria has so surpassed what I've done. I mean, I am a master's world record holder, but Maria is a world record holder amongst every age, the 20-year-olds, the 30-year-olds, the 40-year-olds. I mean, Maria has so surpassed me, winning RAM, running Boston Marathon several times, qualifying for Boston, out of being, just a mom. And so she has so surpassed me. And I just, it's amazing. And I'm in awe of what she has done as an adult onset athlete.
It's incredible. Maria, I want to talk about your journey to becoming this later in life athlete. And I have right here, I had to write it down because I literally could not believe it. You have the world record holder in cycling for the most miles biked in 24 hours. Guys, she did not stop biking for a day. And you went 469.2 miles. I can't even wrap my head around that. And what's more unbelievable is that you weren't necessarily that box cutter athlete. And now you run Boston Marathon. You have world records. Talk about your journey to becoming literally one of the best athletes in the world.
Oh,
you're too humble.
I'm not comfortable with that. So you gotta, this is my advice to you. You gotta pick a sport that nobody wants to do, like riding a bike for 24 hours.
That's your humble excuse. Okay.
But so, yeah. I was, I married into this. I grew up in a family that did not value athletics, although they didn't discourage it. I actually kind of jogged a little bit with my dad when I was young. My dad was into fitness, but they didn't like athletic pursuits, or they didn't. It's not that they didn't like them. They didn't think it was important. And so, out of the six of us, none of us really did athletics. And of course, I started having children young as I started out, and I married into this family, Jim and Kelly, and their parents and the other siblings, they valued athleticism and they valued fitness. I can remember Kelly's dad doing exercises like calisthenics and stuff. He's 90, so it must have worked. So and so they valued athleticism, and I was inspired by Kelly, but I really started running to get away from the kids. I was running away. And guess what? A bicycle's faster than running. No. I was very into being a mother. I had 4 children. I loved it. I homeschooled them. My whole identity was tied up in being a mother, but that really wasn't enough. And so having this other thing that I could do that defined me, that didn't have anything to do with the kids or my husband or anything. And Kelly saw that little seed, and she just watered it and fertilized it and nourished, and she got me going into my first 5K where, I think I wet my pants and threw up, but it was just.
We've come a long way.
Yeah. Well, I'm still doing that, but no. So yeah, Kelly encouraged it. And then my husband and I, kind of the running started, and then I started doing triathlons, and I was cycling, and my husband started to cycle with me, and it's kind of a long story, but we ended up really liking recumbent bicycles because they were comfortable. We can go a long way. So we bought this bicycle company. And that's kind of what started the whole getting really into cycling and endurance cycling. I found that I have really good ability to go a long way. It's true in everything in my life. That's one of the things that is really great about Kelly and I is Kelly is the idea person. She's the creative person. She's always coming up with new things. And I'm like, nope, we got to keep on going. We're doing this. Exactly. So yeah, so the 24-hour cycling records and 12-hour cycling records, they're and Race Across America, they're a product of partly just having this little athlete inside me nurtured by my adopted family, and partly just this natural gift from God that says that I have the ability to just keep on going. I tell my kids I have 2 special talents. One is nothing grosses me out. Which is good for changing diapers. And 2 is I suffer well.
You can handle the pain. I think that's especially, and I can relate to this. I'm not an endurance level on either of your levels. But the events that I swam growing up were the longer distance ones where I had to grind for 2 to 4 hours every single day, staring at that black line if I wanted to swim for 4 minutes as fast as I could. And now that I'm older and body doesn't recover as well anymore or as fast, nutrition and sleep and all these external factors have all of a sudden become to the focal point. And I would love to talk nutrition with both of you. You're both health coaches, and you're both obviously incredible world-renowned athletes. So how and what advice would you give to an athlete right now trying to pursue what you do, Maria, or what you do, Kelly? And let's talk about sugar as well, because I know you guys have some advice for all of us on that. Kelly, we'll go with you first.
Sure. Yes. Nutrition is something that I think when you're a really deep athlete and the Michael Phelps lore and the legend of he gets to eat, 10,000 calories a day, and you see his spread at Denny's or something with everything. So I think when one is working out incredibly hard, that they need just a lot of everything, a lot of carbs, a lot of protein, a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruits. And so that's one subset of nutrition, of just eating good whole foods of all kinds. And, in general, we as health coaches say, you've got to stay away from processed foods, even if you're Michael Phelps or you're training like, he trained or you trained, Elizabeth. You don't want to eat Pop-Tarts, and you don't want to eat, a lot of bad crackers and donuts and things that are really heavily processed. But then I think, and I'm going to let Maria take this one. We let's go back to sugar, but I think that generally eating whole foods, staying completely away from, the processed foods. And there's so many great whole foods out there now. We're definitely, if people can eat organic, if they can afford it, or if they can wash their veggies and their fruits a little bit better, but going in that direction, and not eating too many calories. It's pretty easy, calories in, calories out. That still works. And then if you're an older athlete, I think one really needs to watch, because we think that, if I get in my pool and I swim for, an hour or 30 minutes or whatever I can afford that day, maybe I burn, 500 calories, but it just takes one gigantic piece of banana nut bread to wipe that entire thing out, so it's not like we used to, where literally I swam 20,000 a day, many days. So I was in a calorie deficit. So, but now as an adult, I think we need to really control our carbs a lot more. I want to go back to sugar, but Maria is on the keto diet, or a very low carb diet, and it has worked incredibly well for her. And it even actually helps a lot with endurance racing. So Maria, talk about.
Yeah. Thanks for giving me that opening, Kelly. I have been a carb addict my whole life. I'm Italian. We grew up eating bread for breakfast, bread for lunch, bread for dinner, pasta beside the bread. We always had, looking back on this, and I hope my mother's not listening to this right now, but we would have to have bread with every meal. So even if we were having a pasta meal, we'd have bread. Like it doesn't make any sense now. Anyway, what I was having trouble with my stomach on these long events, and I started looking into alternatives, like, do I have to eat? Because if I was eating, I was not being able to retain the food. And for 24 hours, you have to consume calories unless you're keto adapted. So if you're doing this, doesn't really work well for explosive sports, but at least the science is mixed on it. But for endurance sports, if you can keto adapt, which just means going very low carb, which allows your enzymes to develop fat burning. The fat burning enzymes to become much more prominent. We talk about like a two fuel system. Like there's the carb burns, which your body loves to burn. Carbs are it's very easy, and fat's more difficult to burn. But you can upregulate those enzymes by going on a very low carb diet. So that worked for me in terms of, like, I've done a 24-hour event without taking in any calories, which I know people don't believe that, and I'm sure but I have. I mean, it's documented, it's proven. You have to take salts, but because my stomach doesn't tolerate food very well, I was able to do that, and I actually did very well. So anyway, this keto diet's not for everyone, but it works really well for me, because for so long I was just really on the carb train, and my sugar was going up and down all day, every day, because I'd bottom out, I'd have to eat more, I'd bottom out, I'd have to eat more. And on the mostly now, I'm probably not keto, but I'm very low carb, and it just keeps me very even. And I would think for older people, especially anybody who feels like they struggle with a true sugar addiction, should consider going very low carb, at least during that period where they're trying to break the bonds of the sugar poison holding on to you. So.
Right. I want to talk about sugar addiction and go back to sugar, just because I think as a swimmer, especially for me growing up, it was all about the sugars. You win your heat, you get a pixie stick or a Tootsie Pop, and like, oh, I have a race in 5 minutes. Like, I need to down this Gatorade. And that's just what was ingrained in my mind. And now, obviously, having years of experience under my belt, I was not eating a ton of sugar while I was at the peak of my training in 2016 for those Olympics. And I felt the best that I had ever felt in the water. And so I'm not behind the science as much as you guys are. And I would love for you to kind of put it into layman's terms for everybody listening right now, how sugar truly is addictive and we need to break that habit. So Kelly, I guess you can lead.
Yeah. I would love to start, because I'm a little more evangelical about this topic. And I was lucky enough to grow up in a family where for whatever reason, my parents really feared diabetes. Like that's the one thing, like everybody has their fears that their parents put in them. And ours was, we don't ever want you to get diabetes, which you can get. I mean, some of it's genetic, but you can force yourself into diabetes through sugar. So I will come out. This is layman's terms. Sugar is poison. It is purely poison for our bodies, and it's put into everything because it's addictive. They'll put it in everything from salad dressings to ketchups to things, because they want you to keep coming back because it is addictive and it gives you that rush. And we're talking about, obviously it's not great to stick your hand into a bowl of M&Ms or to eat a bunch of, Pop-Tarts or donuts, but sugar's in a lot of things that we don't even realize that it's in, but it does so much damage to your pancreas, spiking your insulin, going into a food coma because you're going to crash. So I do remember when we were little, we used to eat spoonfuls of honey before you swim. Your event's coming up, let's just ladle in a couple of tablespoons of honey. So we actually, this is a perfect opportunity. Maria and I just recorded a half-hour. It's called Eat Sweet but Kick Sugar. So we give like 10 options. So here's the thing. I have a sweet tooth and I still eat something sweet at least once or twice a day, but that's safe sugar. We call it safe sugar. So we could go into, in this half hour, we talk about the 10 like horrible things that sugar does. Obviously it makes you gain weight. It makes you're more susceptible to diabetes and cardiovascular disease, but it causes acne. Cultures that don't have sugar in their diets, they don't have acne in their communities. Everything from fatty liver disease, they're finding out, microbiome that your gut is changed from it, inflammation. It feeds. I have a theory that a lot of people have, that it feeds Alzheimer's. My mom just passed away from Alzheimer's. She was a little sugar, little Debbie brownie. She loved her sugar. So I think it's really evil. It's really poison. And fortunately, I was never a big sugar eater or was attracted to it, but we always had healthy alternatives. And Maria, you can address kind of having those crashes and being, someone that might eat a gallon of ice cream at a time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, not a gallon, but close. As much as I could stuff down.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, this is, if I were in a circle of other people who are addicted to sugar, I would tell you the stories about how much sugar I could consume. In college, I would eat a pint of, Ben and Jerry's with a king size pack of peanut M&Ms on top of it. And I wasn't working out. So Kelly and I have just recently discussed this, because Kelly, since I've known her, she's been thin and fit. And I have not always been. I've never been huge, but I've always been a little bit, puffy. And I think there's a difference between having a sweet tooth, which Kelly has, and being a full-on sugar addict, which I am. And so there have been really good studies lately. And, you don't want to minimize other diseases like alcoholism or cocaine addiction or something like this, but they call it functional MRI, where they take a person and they inject them with, cocaine, and they do a functional MRI, which shows which parts of the brain light up. And then they put that next to a functional MRI of somebody who's a sugar addict, and the same parts of your brain light up. It gives you, and anybody who's a sugar addict knows exactly what I'm talking about. I was just talking to somebody yesterday, and she was saying, the only way I can get through my day is just, to know that I've got that stash of M&Ms that I can, go in the bedroom and eat. And she said, I can feel the rush. And it's true. You feel the rush of the serotonin getting released in your brain, and you can become addicted. And I have been addicted. So I have to be very careful. I still eat the alternative sweets that Kelly and I discussed, but I still have to watch it, because I could spend my whole day eating alternative sweets, because I really have that sugar addiction. So I want to speak to anyone out there who there's been a lot about sugar addiction, but it's a real prison, especially if it's causing you to gain weight and you feel bad about yourself. It's just like, it's just like any other addiction. It feeds itself. And so I would just say, to anybody who's experiencing that, you're not alone. It's the most common. It's probably way more common than alcoholism, I would guess. And among women, although I don't know the science there, but that's my anecdotal observation, is that a lot of women have it.
Yeah. And I would say that, you started off this question is, what is the one thing people can do? Like, if you take away one thing for your nutrition, it would be to eliminate sugar or really heavily reduce it. And Maria, I've told you the the Halloween candy story of Mark. So, Mark, my husband, we moved into a new location where we get trick-or-treaters. We used to live in a oceanfront condo and we never had trick-or-treaters because we were on a high floor. Nobody would come. So we moved into a house and I thought, oh, this is going to be exciting. I'm going to, bring trick-or-treat candy and we're not going to eat it, but we're going to give it to these little kids. So I got one of the 100 jumbo bags. I don't know if there were 100, but it was a jumbo bag to feed trick-or-treaters. And I came home and Mark was totally distraught, truly almost crying. And he came to me and he said, I ate it all. And I said, what? What did you eat? He said, I ate it all. And I said, honey, well, what? I mean, he was so upset. And he said, I ate all the Halloween candy. And I had literally been gone like 4 hours and he ate every bit of it. And so it's real. I mean, when you get into that mode, but what I wanted to say in regards to that, there have been times when I will attend a birthday party and not to be too aberrant, I will, with my low sugar blood count and eating these alternative things and keeping my sugar grams under 10 to 20 a day, sometimes I will eat a piece of cake with a big fat layer of icing and all that. And I am telling you, maybe other people get a sugar rush from it. I feel so nauseated and so sick and I crash so hard. I can almost feel, it's almost like somebody drugged me and
poisoned you.
Yeah. And poisoned me. And you have to listen to that. You have to listen to your body because then it just becomes like your sweet tooth gets ramped up. Your ability to handle more sugar gets ramped up. So I said in our last thing, I've gone to Medellin. Now I'm preaching. I've gone to Medellin. So,
right.
Yeah, people can listen to our sugar podcast.
But
I know I could talk about this literally for the next 30 minutes.
Yeah.
We need to talk about how amazing you guys are still. So please, anybody that's listening that wants to check that out, it'll be on Champions Mojo, I'm sure.
Yeah,
on Tuesday.
Within a couple of weeks.
It's the very next one.
Oh, it's the very next one. Okay, so next Tuesday.
Wonderful, beautiful. Yeah. I will certainly be checking that out.
We give a lot of good alternatives. It's going to hit November 10th is the date.
Awesome, perfect. November 10th. Everybody, mark your calendars. It will change your life.
I hope so.
I know, right? I want to talk about the podcast itself, Champions Mojo. I first of all want to know how this came into fruition. Whose idea was it? How hard is it to start a podcast, to get guests? I want to know everything. And Maria, we'll switch it up. We'll start with you for this one.
Okay. Well, really, this is a total Kelly question. So I'll just add my little bit and then hand it over to her, which is that she said, I want to do this. She'd been talking about wanting to do a podcast for a long time. And I try to be as encouraging to her as she has always been to me. Kelly, I think you'd be great at that. That'd be great. And she showed me her logo and stuff. And I was like, I think that'd be great. Just go for it. Just go for it. And so Kelly, I'll let you take it away.
Well, yeah. So the very first little seed brainchild was simply, I'm a swimmer. I love swimming. I love podcasting. And so I looked around for a swimming podcast and this was over 80 episodes ago. So we're talking well over a year ago. There really weren't very many. And so I thought, why not start one? If there isn't one, then I'd love to talk to these great swimmers like you and just interview them and get the people to know them out there. And the ISL was starting. So it was kind of like the combination of it. And then Maria and I, believe it or not, we had started scheduling once a week that we definitely would talk because we live in different cities, different states. And so we were already on this. I want to talk to Maria this week. What are you up to? And so then it just was a natural thing like, oh my gosh, we could talk every week about what we've talked about. We've always been encouraging each other. And sometimes on our weekly talks where it was just Maria and I would be talking about discipline or sugar or something that was really a performance enhancing tool to help our lives because we're both really into personal development. And then we're like, boy, wouldn't it have been nice if we had recorded that call because we just had it. And so then it was just kind of natural. Hey, you know what? I think it would be great to have a swimming podcast with a non-swimmer because, like in the very first few podcast, you know that we have listeners that don't know what underwaters are. They don't know what stroke is.
I said, what's underwaters?
Yeah.
What are underwaters? And like backstroke flags. Where are the backstroke flags up? What are they for? So Maria asked these great non-swimmer questions, and it really has been just a huge balance. And then we don't want to just talk swimming, and we really don't talk a lot of X's and O's. We talk about what makes a champion, what routines did you use to get to the Olympics, and then we kind of intermix it with things like nutrition and mental health, and we interview mental health experts. And so it's just been blossoming and growing and getting people. I think, like once you get started, people see, wow, that person was on there. I want to be on there. And so we've really been, I think we've had over 25 Olympic gold medalists. If we added up the and tons of Olympians, and, you're silver lining and you're one of our best people, and you didn't get a gold, but you got silver. And so we've had tons of, I would love to count up the number of Olympic medals, not just the number of Olympic people, but how to start a pod now that the pandemic everybody's been locked down. There have been tons of podcasts that have started on all topics, not just swimming, but people ask us a lot, should I start a podcast? And Maria says, Kelly always says, no, but it's hard work. It's a lot of every single week. You've got to edit. You've got to get a subject. You've got to book a subject. You've got to write a script. You've got to advertise it. You've got to do the graphics. You've got to do the photos. You've got to write your questions. Then you have to show up and you've got to interview. And it's a lot of work. And so if somebody wants to do a lot of work, great. And let me say, there's not a lot of money in it. I mean, you're putting money into it. So
it's an investment in time and money.
Yeah.
Right.
But you got to really want to do it.
You got to be in it for the long haul. And Maria is the long haul person. And there was about a year into it, we just, we were doing well, but we weren't making a lot of money. And I told Maria, I think I'm ready to quit. Maria's like, we are not quitting.
Love that. And, one of my favorite parts about your podcast, and I've listened to multiple episodes, is that it's not, like you said, Kelly, all X's and O's. It's not about like the intricacies of that sport, whoever you're talking to. It's about the athlete as a whole. And what I appreciate, and unfortunately, when I was on the podcast, it was just Kelly interviewing me. I didn't get to do mine with Maria, but you guys do your research. And when somebody is being interviewed, that is what they appreciate most. Where your subject, what they've been through, the adversities that they've faced, and you dive into that. And so I have so much respect for both of you for taking the time to actually care enough to research whoever it is that you secured as your subject for that week. And I want to ask you, when you were first getting started, I mean, the list of athletes and people that you've interviewed is second to none. It's unbelievable. I was scrolling through earlier yesterday and I was like, they've literally had all of my heroes on their podcast. And
wow.
No, it's nice. So true. And I have a question, how do you secure those guests, especially when you're first starting out, when it's in its infancy and you don't really have that tenure of guests to fall back on almost?
Well, let me start. And Kelly, I know you'll finish this because this is something I so admire about Kelly. She is not afraid to ask anyone for anything. And so Kelly has the background in swimming, but she, where eyes might be hesitate and think, well, I don't want to put anybody out. I don't want to, force somebody to say no to me. Kelly will ask. She will ask for anything. And when you ask, you get. But Kelly, you can talk about how we got all those great. Because Kelly did it all. It's nothing to do with me.
I think what's fun about this, thanks, Maria. You're my biggest fan. I just love you so much.
I am.
But,
it might be.
And I'm yours. I think that's a huge part of it. Some of it is just flatly just go out there and knock on every door you can in life and in general. And so that's kind of how it started. I think I was very lucky to have been a Division I head coach and have contacts with other coaches. Like one of the people who's opened so many doors for so many people is David Marsh, Rowdy Gaines. I mean, these guys are like, they know everybody. So I've stayed in contact with that community. But if one is thinking about how do I do this? How do I get people the award-winning podcast that we did was with Lewis Pugh. And if you have not heard the Lewis Pugh episode, I think it's episode number 37.
It's life-changing.
It is life-changing. Lewis Pugh was the one we won the Webby Award with. But I literally sent an email to info@lewispugh.com and said, hey, we have a podcast. We were just a little baby podcast at that point. And he emails me back. Oh, sure. He'll be on the show. So I'm like, he said he's in South Africa, but he said, I'm coming to Boston. And if you want to interview me, I've told my husband, I'm flying to Boston. I got to interview Lewis Pugh. So
you didn't just say we have a podcast. You said, I'm a huge fan. I know what you've done. She let him know that she knew what his, passion was.
Oh, I knew everything about him.
It was so good that we had to actually break it into 2 episodes because we could not stop talking. This guy, everything that comes out of his mouth is a pearl that you want to memorize and write on your wall and repeat 30 times every day. If you haven't seen the Lewis Pugh episode, please listen to it.
Yeah, it will inspire you beyond. Yeah. And then the other thing that I think is just a standard great business practice, and this is the key to how we continue to get good people and in everything. So, my main job is I'm a real estate investor and a realtor. So all realtors make their money by referrals. They literally, if you do a good job, you're going to get referred. And that's pretty much how life is in business. If you're a good banker, if you're a good whatever, if you're a good coach, people are going to talk about, hey, they're great at what they do. So one is doing a good job, being good enough that other athletes say, hey, you need to be on Champions Mojo. Those chicks kind of know what they're doing and you'll have a lot of fun, but then the other part is every time we finish a show, and I did this to you, and I'll email you and hound you and text you, Elizabeth, who do you know that should be on Champions Mojo? So, and Maria at first, she was like, oh my God, I can't believe you asked, her for that. Or it's like when they're getting off the line, somebody that we just met, that we just interviewed, hey, do you, like Ryan Murphy, can you hook me up with Andrew Soliskar and Terry McKeever and, all the Cal people? And Ryan's like, sure enough.
I got their number. Why not?
They give me the cell, they give me the text. And so I think you really in life, you got to ask for what you want. And if somebody says, heck no, we're going to get Michael Phelps. I promise you, we are going to get Michael Phelps because
you heard it here, everybody. They will get Michael Phelps.
Yeah. And what's funny is
because we mention his name every single episode.
That's a joke that we say. We have to mention him on every single episode. But when we won the Webby Award, the Webby Awards are famous. So when we were nominated, you have to do a 5-word acceptance speech, and it's a video. So we had to get it ready. And even though we didn't win, we were nominated. So we had it all packaged and ready. And I swim, and it has to be like under 10 seconds. So I swim 5 strokes of butterfly across a pool. My husband films it. I swim 5 strokes and I pop up, and you only have 5 words and you can say anything you want. And I said, we want you, Michael Phelps. And those are my 5 words. Those were the 5 video words. And I've got to send it to Bob Bowman because even, of course, when I interviewed Bob, what do you think I said to Bob at the end? Hey, Bob, I know everybody asked you this, but could you connect us to Michael? And he's like, well, I won't tell you what he said, but it was, I'm just cracking. I'm cracking. We're going to go.
You're going to get there soon.
Oh, we will. I have no doubt we will get Michael Phelps.
So cool.
I've watched how Kelly works. We'll get him.
Oh, yeah, I have no doubt.
And I'll say, who are you? No.
Right? I'm sorry. Who's our guest this week? Yeah. What have you done? Speaking of what have you done, I want both of you to tell me what your most proud accomplishment is. And this could be in sport, in life, in podcast. What is your most proud accomplishment? Either are you?
I can go. I mean,
go, Maria.
I'm so proud of many things that I've done, but I'm most proud of the incredible, beautiful children that I've raised. They're such good people. They're such good people. And I mean, I don't know that I can take much responsibility for that. I think that's partly God and partly lots of good grandparents and aunts and uncles and stuff, but I have raised some fine children.
Yeah, I think no doubt. I think the thing that I've done that has helped the most people, which means the most to my heart and my life, is starting the It Stand charity. It's itsan.org. And, I've talked about this before, but I've suffered with red skin syndrome, which is an iatrogenic condition. I was prescribed, as a little itchy swimmer, I had eczema, which is what everybody starts with. And then I was prescribed a lot of topical steroids for years and years and years. You're not supposed to use that. So eventually it becomes a condition that's called red skin syndrome, where it really does a lot of damage to your skin. It's a really hard thing to get over. And so when I went through this 11 years ago, it was traumatic. I was like a burn victim. I couldn't leave my house for about a year. I was just beet red and peeling and oozing. And it was just, but I started a charity, co-founded a charity with a dermatologist. And now we are in 32 countries. We've helped thousands of people understand the condition that they're in. And even though my brother, Jim, who is Maria's husband, who is a medical doctor, and Jim's got 20 patents in the patent office. He's been the youngest speaker at the American Academy of Radiology. I mean, he's a really great doctor who has invented some devices and things. And he's my little brother, the doctor, and he's the medical expert in our family. And he said, Kelly, I'm the doctor, but he said, I think when we look back on our lives, what you've done with ITSAN will be the thing medically in this family that will help the most people. So that's definitely, what I'm the most proud of.
Well, and you didn't even mention that starting that charity caused the whole medical world around skin, the dermatology, to change their recommendations about using topical steroids. And that's huge. I mean, Kelly and her group stopped in its tracks a great source of suffering.
Yeah. And it's still, I mean, we're having so many, like when we first started the National Eczema Association, which is National Eczema Association was funded by topical steroids because it's the only treatment for eczema. So they were in the pockets of big pharma, and big pharma was pushing topical steroids. So when I first approached, I was the president of ITSAN, the co-founder, I called the National Eczema Association president, Julie Block, and she told me, you and your little internet squad, you're out of your minds. This is absolutely, you're fake. And so I had wanted to purchase a booth at the National Eczema Association Expo that is every year to just tell people, hey, maybe your topical steroids are what's causing your skin problems, because people just no, they wouldn't allow us. I went to a little meeting. I was thrown out of the meeting. Like literally they called security to get me out of the meeting. Well, guess what? The National Eczema Association just endorsed ITSAN and our protocols and our so it's really, it's like turning the Titanic, but it's happening, that people are realizing. Yeah.
I think you two are the epitome of making lemonade out of lemons. And that is something that we can all get better at. And you two are so inspiring with your podcast and the people that you interview, but you as humans are also inspiring. And if you guys have an example, could you give me a scenario or a situation where something was so bad and you faced the worst adversity that you've ever faced, but you turned it into something that you are now incredibly proud of, and it's one of your best accomplishments? Because I love stories like that, from somebody at the dirt, at the ground, they never think they're going to get back up, and then here they are standing on top of the mountain. And those are the stories that really pull at my heartstrings. So if you guys have any of those, I would love for you to share.
Maria, I know two right off the top of my head for you that you have to start with. And I think Jenny's your first one, because that is just.
Yes. So my sister, and most people who know me know this, my sister died of brain cancer, glioblastoma multiforme, GBM, which is a very common form and very lethal form of brain cancer. And she was, I was very close to her. We were 10 months apart, and we had kids the same age. We were very, very close our whole lives. And so losing her, watching her, deal with it, and then losing her has been absolutely, one of the most difficult things. There have been other hard things, but of my life, but like Kelly, I kind of listened to the place in my heart that said, you got to do something. And so I've been raising money for brain cancer research. I think we're up to $800,000 for brain cancer research. My goal is to raise $1 million, but I don't know if, it's still out there, it's still killing people. So trying to, I think what they call it is making meaning, trying to make meaning. Like when we suffer anything, broken relationships or physical suffering or, death, the best thing that can come out of it is that you make some meaning that says, okay, this bad thing happened, but I'm going to somehow look at it in this way or turn it this way so that it can do good for others. And so, and Kelly obviously, with her suffering, and she truly suffered. People don't understand, Kelly, we've never really talked about the suffering that Kelly has experienced with her eczema since I've known her, just basically going from one steroid treatment to the next, and just how much difficult. I mean, it's like having leprosy. People look at you differently when your skin is not smooth and clean and beautiful. And Kelly, who's beautiful, has suffered, and she's turned that into something good for others. So I think, and that would be my encouragement to anyone, if there's something difficult in your life, whatever you're suffering with, there's something in there. There's a road, there's an avenue there for you. We did that early in our podcast, where stumbling blocks can become stepping stones, but basically it's making meaning of difficult situations or suffering.
Absolutely love that.
Yeah. And Maria started a charity. I mean, that's how they raised all that money. So, she started 3,000 Miles to a Cure, and then used that power of thinking about Jenny, of, wanting to help people with brain cancer. And she said, when she's, I'm sure the suffering that you did on that bike, people talk about like winning RAM. We talk about her records and the number of miles that she did in 24 hours, but Elizabeth, RAM is like driving your car from LA to Annapolis in 11 days in a car. Maria did that on a bike. There's no sleeping. There's no, you're almost delirious. And she said there were times when she's grinding up these mountains where she's just suffering in ways that 10 400 IMs or 10 1000s never touch. I mean, we're talking no sleep, no food, up a mountain, freezing, burning hot.
Just a different kind. Yeah.
But so she started 3,000 Miles to a Cure, which is the 3,000 miles across America, and use that. So I think it's just incredible what Maria did with that. And now people can take whatever their passion is. If you lose a loved one or you have a cause, you don't even have to start a charity. I mean, starting a charity, Maria did it. I did it. It's a huge thing. You have to get a 501c3. You have to get a board of directors. You have to do taxes. You have to do all kinds of stuff. But now they have these great GoFundMe page, like somebody that, is, I just gave $100 to the poor, beautiful swimmer junior at college who dove into a river and broke her neck. And did you see that on SwimSwam? Yeah. And it was a GoFundMe page. And I was like, great. They don't have to start a charity, but that gave meaning, and it's a way to help. So I think that's beautiful, turning, lemons into lemonade. I would say definitely my skin and the suffering that I've had has been my hugest, brought me to my knees. And people can't believe that I say, I'm a breast cancer survivor, and going through breast cancer was a piece of cake compared to what I've gone through with my skin. But still, it was a time in my life where, people don't die from red skin syndrome. They suffer a lot, but people do die from breast cancer. So when I got that diagnosis of, hey, am I going to ride 3 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu, or am I going to, really what am I going to do? So I think I went through a time where I'm anti-hospital. I'm now anti-drugs because of what I went through. So I really looked at not doing anything. And Maria and Jim were pivotal so I kind of went into a depression. And I think probably depression and anxiety that I've had throughout my life has been a real obstacle. And I know we talk about that a lot with swimmers and the weight of gold. And you don't have to be an ex-Olympian to have depression or anxiety.
No.
But, so I think when I got diagnosed with breast cancer, I really hit a really low point. And I just decided, hey, I'm going to let this disease take me. It was kind of like a terrible give up way. But Jim and Maria, and especially Jim being a radiology who specializes in breast density and reading mammograms, he's like, Kelly, just get it out, have the surgery, and you'll be fine. You'll live forever. People are living forever now. So, but definitely getting through my skin thing has been horrific. It's been an 11-year journey.
Wow. And you don't have to go through some life-altering disease or death, but we all have struggles. And I mean, I really try to think about that in the morning if I wake up and I'm a little bit low. It's like, what's the struggle? How can I turn this into gold? How can I make this, something? And if you're moving in that direction, of course, it's going to lift your spirits. And I mean, I think a lot of people, we talk about this on our show all the time. This anxiety and depression is just so common, and it's so easy to get stuck there. It's like it's like anything else. It can feed on itself, and so yeah, the mindset thing is one of the reasons why Kelly and I love to talk to each other. Is like, how can we use the people around us and our minds, to use these difficulties, the suffering. Everyone experiences difficulties and suffering. Everyone will not get through this life without suffering. To use that to do something good, to be part of something good.
Yeah, and even relationship breakups.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I have multiple divorces, and it doesn't have to be a life-threatening thing. It can be a problem at your work, or a problem with a friend, or a relationship breakup. And it's just, the mindset. And, I in researching depression and anxiety, and it's something that I've really looked at a lot. And we have a family member that, struggles with it. And it really, I always try to help her, and I worry about her. And there's a book called Feeling Good by David Burns. And it literally is almost like an instant cure, but it's a little yellow book you can get on Amazon. And basically, in a nutshell, David Burns says, most depression and anxiety is a result of stinking thinking. And it's just a repetitive thing that you keep saying to yourself that's negative, and you just keep hammering it in. And if you can change that, what your self-talk is so vital. It's so important in everything. Especially, I mean, obviously it's important as an athlete, but I think that's why we did Champions Mojo, and that it is an X's and O's. It's, what do champions do that we can do? And champions stand behind the block and they say, I'm going to kick ass. I'm strong. I'm Superwoman. I'm ready to go. They don't stand back there and say, oh my God, she looks really fast. Oh my gosh. I mean, but we do that in life. We do that. We say that to ourselves in life. We say, boy, I'm not worthy of that. Or boy, this is going to be a bad outcome. Or boy, is that little lump right here cancer? Yeah, I think, it's like we talk so bad to ourselves, and we, self-talk is everything.
I agree. And I think that's, again, one of my favorite parts about Champions Mojo is that you address the mindset, the mental health side of sports or whatever it is, because I remember growing up through the sport and mental health was still very taboo. And I'm sure when you guys were growing up as well, and we're finally getting to a point, thanks to people like you, thanks to people starting to understand and actually care about mental health, we're talking about it. We're helping these athletes who are Olympic gold medalists, but are also dealing with depression or anxiety. Sure. And I would love to hear from both of you. How do you deal and overcome with anxiety or depression or mental health issues? I mean, I dealt with it when I was swimming, but I don't think I had the help that I needed. And I think you guys are really opening that door for people that listen to this, where you can be the Michael Phelps and still have these problems, and it's okay. You're a human. So what are some tactics that you guys use to overcome when you're not feeling your best mentally?
That's a great question. Go ahead, Kelly.
We actually have, and this is part of our coaching, there's something called like a mental health menu. And it's just like you go to your medicine cabinet. If you I hope people don't go to the medicine cabinet, but if you did, you've got your antihistamine and your aspirin and your Advil and your Pepto-Bismol. Okay. So if you've got those things, so you need a mental health menu. And in working with some clients recently, I had them create things that when you're in that anxious state, when you're in that depressed state, what can you do? And have that list, have it literally on your phone, have it, on a spreadsheet, have it in your journal, but have a menu of things that make you, like, If it's anxiety, well, then you need to deep breathe. Breathing changes everything. You need to put a 5-minute YouTube video on deep breathing and anxiety. You can almost find anything on YouTube that will help you, but light a candle, take a bath, go for a walk, play music, play with your dog, call a friend. All those things, like, have a toolkit for things that you can do when you're in that. And the same thing with depression, that if you're depressed, then you need to get more serotonin in your brain, which is what Zoloft, Prozac, and Paxil do. They're selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. They just keep serotonin in your brain. So what causes serotonin? Singing, doing karaoke, dancing,
laughing.
looking at animals, laughing. So find ways to create natural serotonin in your brain and go to them quickly. And when you're in a depression, when you're circling the pit. I've been depressed. I know what it's. I can feel it. I'm getting lower and lower, and you've got to pull yourself then. And if you wait too long, well, then reach out to somebody, but have a toolkit, have a plan.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. I think, we talk about joy jolts, having a list of things on your bulletin board that, that brings you joy: cut flowers, rocking chairs, singing a song. But I would say even more important or as important is tell someone. You got to get out of your head. And, if that's what counselors do. They listen to people so that when you're saying something, sometimes you can realize, oh my gosh, that's not even reasonable. But things that inside your head can seem true and reasonable, and they're just wrong and they're lies. So I would say tell somebody. I mean, with one of Kelly and I lost a relative to suicide, and now I was young. I didn't understand, but she called me not long before she died and said, if this is just another nail in my coffin. Well, now I would know, oh my gosh, this is somebody who's really, and if somebody talks to me about, Kelly knows this, if somebody says, oh, I'm just, I can't bear to live, even if they're making it sound like a joke, I take that very seriously, and we'll say, what are you talking about? Do you have a plan? So my point is, if you feel anxious or depressed, talk to anybody, just talk about it. And there's help out there. As Kelly said, there's free help on YouTube. There's video counselors, there's telephone counselors, get it out of your head and into the air where you can deal it. And then finally, for me, knowing that there's something greater than myself that controls this universe. When I'm anxious or depressed, I remind myself that I am, this isn't for me. I truly believe this isn't a random occurrence. This meeting, the three of us, isn't a random. Everything is, happens for a reason, and that God is in control. And, that really helps me.
I absolutely love that. Guys, my serotonin is so, I'm so excited. My serotonin is over the roof right now because of you two. I have one more question. For the future, what are both of you most looking forward to?
Oh, wow.
I know. You could go on another 24-hour bike ride and break your own world record. You could start another podcast, like anything that you are just looking forward to or hope to accomplish in the future.
I can start, Maria, because it has to do with you. And so Maria and her husband, my brother, are my two best friends. My little brother, I adore him. We have an amazing relationship. And imagine that your sibling's wife is your best friend. So like when they're around, it's like, and this is the cherry on the cake. Ready, Elizabeth? My husband and Maria's husband have a total bromance. I mean, they are like we are so lucky. And so Jim and Maria are moving to Florida for the winters. So where they're going to be. So futuristically, I am over the moon that Jim and Maria are going to be in our backyard. We're going to be able to record podcasts in the same room. Yeah, together. Yeah. And see my two best friends and my husband's friends. And so it's just like, that's for me super, super exciting. And then I'll add into it, even though I don't have my own kids, I am crazy about my nieces and nephews and my great nieces and nephews. And then they're going to follow Jim and Maria to come to Florida. So I get to see my little so that's what I'm most excited about.
Oh, that's amazing. Maria, what are you?
Gosh, I am in such a great place in my life right now. As I mentioned, my 4 children are grown and they're just amazing adults. So I guess I'm looking forward to continuing watching them grow and their children grow, and and my grandchildren. I'm not going to go on about them, but they're fabulous.
You're perfect,
So
of
yeah, I
course.
guess I have some personal ambitions too. I want to stay fit, and I want to see this podcast. I want to get Michael Phelps on the show.
That is like the one takeaway from today. We're getting Michael Phelps on the show.
Yeah. And I run a bicycle company. I would like to, it's doing really well. I'd love to continue to watch that grow. So I have some personal ambitions, but mostly, gosh, we're in such a good spot right now, aren't we, Kelly? Kelly and I both are in a situation where we don't have to worry about money too much, and we have people around us that we love, and the people around us that we love are healthy, and we're both in good health. So what more can you ask for?
Yeah, and I would add, of course, I'm super ambitious with the podcast. That's my futuristically, but I had a vision board, and I had Maria and I back to back, which we just did photos back to back, but it was like the title of us on the cover of Forbes was Building an Empire After Menopause. So,
Exactly.
I love that.
So the encouragement is to, you can start new things when you're older. It's never too late to do anything. And, I really resisted video for a while. We switched to, we were only doing audio with the podcast, and everybody's like, you got to go to video. And then I was like, well, who wants to look at, old ladies? And then I was like, you know what? We need old ladies out there to show that, because everybody's going to be an old lady one day or old man. And you got to show that this is what a 58-year-old face looks like. And, hey, YouTube is full of beautiful young faces, but we need to say there's a place for everyone in anything that they want to do. So it's never too late.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great way to end too, because as a person who devoted herself to her children, I thought that was it. But then now I have a whole new life. I set bicycle records after my children were grown. I'm starting, this podcast with Kelly after they're grown, So if you feel like you want to have a family and a career, guess what? You can do both. You don't even have to do it at the same time. You can do it sort of sequentially. So if you want to, there's time for everything. I would say that to most people. You should live each day as if it were the last, but there's time for everything.
God, you two are insanely inspirational. It exudes through the screen. And it's just so cool to see two very strong women doing whatever they want, following their dreams, regardless of their age or where they are in their life. And I know I'm 28, so I'm younger, but it's inspirational to me to see that, because I do have some dreams where I think, oh, maybe it's too late to do that. And
no.
And everybody needs to know that it's not. And I want to thank both of you for your time. Everybody that tuned in today, please go to championsmojo.com. Listen to all 80 plus podcasts.
Thank you.
You will leave every single one feeling so good and inspired. And that's what these two incredible women do so well. And I am honored to be on a 3-screen with you guys. And
Elizabeth,
world-class athletes.
That's right.
Excited to have you here in the CG Sports Network family. And congratulations on that. But without further ado, thank you so much. And I cannot wait until the next time that all three of us meet again.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Stay healthy.
Thank you.
You too.